Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Kerry Siggins, and I hope you are having a great day today. So, today I want to talk about the difference between self esteem and confidence and why it's important to have both. These two terms are used interchangeably, and I think people get them confused thinking that they are the same things, but they aren't. They have very distinct meanings and they have very different implications for your life as a leader, whether you're a self leader or a people leader or both. We're all self leaders, right? And I think this is really important so that we can see when maybe we have low self esteem or have low confidence and know what actions to take to be able to work on both of them because they're really important, especially as a leader. You've got to have both. So let's start with definitions first so that you can understand the difference. So self-esteem is really that internal sense of self-worth and value that you have about yourself. And this is independent of external achievements. This is just how you truly feel inside as a person. Confidence is about the belief in your abilities to perform tasks or achieve goals. That's the key difference. Self-esteem, how you feel about your self-worth. Confidence, your belief in your abilities to perform a task or to achieve a goal. Seems nuanced, but it's really important. And the reason why I think this is so important is that you can have one without the other. And I experienced this in my 20s when I was a high achiever. I was working really hard. I was absolutely confident in my ability to figure things out, to put in the effort to be successful. I knew that I could do it. I knew that I had the innate ability to be successful. I was smart. But I had low self-esteem. I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. I had body image issues. I just did not like myself for so many reasons, which is what led to my substance misuse issues. So while I had this ability to achieve and I was confident in my intelligence and my work ethic, my low self-esteem was really holding me back because I did not like myself. I was not comfortable in my own skin. I was lonely. I was lost. And I used substances to mask all of that. And that is the difference right there between having high confidence and low self esteem. And we'll talk about some other examples later on. But why this became so important to me in my journey of recovery and healing is that I had to work on my self esteem and why I didn't like myself, why I was so desperate for external validation to prove that I was worthy of love and that people liked me and thought I was successful. And even though I was confident in myself, it was just this really kind of like crazy place to be because I was like, I know I can do this. Like, why do I hate myself so much? And that is the work that I've been doing for the last 2 decades. And I want to do an episode in the future about working on your baggage because baggage sucks. Baggage just holds you back from achieving your dreams. But we're going to talk about self-esteem and confidence today. So the key takeaways for this podcast are going to be diving more into the difference between self-esteem and confidence, why you need to build both as a leader, and some actionable tips on how to cultivate self-esteem and more confidence. All right, so let's dive into the definitions a little bit more. So we're going to start with self-esteem. Again, self-esteem is that internal self-worth that you have, that feeling of value that you know you bring to the world, or don't if you have low self-esteem. And why this is so important is because leaders with high self-esteem are more resilient. They can bounce back from tough things, and they value themselves even when they face criticism or setbacks. So kind of like my last solo episode about the courage to get into the arena, that is really about self-esteem. It doesn't matter if I keep getting knocked down. I believe in myself. I know that I can do this, even if I do have critics, or even if I do make mistakes, or if things turn out differently than what I was expecting. I know that I can use this as a way to be able to learn and grow and turn that challenge into an opportunity. So that is what high self-esteem looks like. And we need leaders with high self-esteem. The opposite would be leaders who make a mistake and they beat themselves up. They go inward and they become more fearful. And leadership calls so much more from us than that. So we've got to be resilient. We've got to be able to bounce back. We've got to be able to make tough decisions when we don't have all the information. That's what self-esteem is and why it's so important. And I love this quote from Maxwell Maltz, who says, low self-esteem is like driving through life with the handbrake on. It really does hold you back. I look back to my 20s when I was successful and I was doing good things with my career, but I was self-sabotaging because I had low self-esteem. I did not like my body. I did not feel like I was worthy, and I did stupid things. I made stupid mistakes because of it. And it was absolutely like having the handbrake on. All right, now let's dive a little bit more into confidence. So, again, confidence is the belief in your abilities to perform tasks or achieve goals. So, a confident leader can make tough decisions, even if they're unsure of the outcome. A confident leader can get up in front of his employees or shareholders or give a keynote, even if they're feeling nervous, going, I know my stuff. I understand this company. I understand what I'm talking about. I understand the challenges that we face as an organization. And even though there are so many unknowns, I know I can figure this out. That is what confidence is. It's your ability to be able to do your job and believe that you can do your job well. And so the key distinction here is that confidence is often task specific. I know that I am good at strategy. I know that I am a good keynote speaker, and it took practice to be able to get there, which we're going to talk a little bit about. But what makes self-esteem different is that it is a broader self-evaluation of your entire life. So a good example of this is a friend of mine who runs a company. She is amazing. She is such a great people leader. She is doing fantastic things and building her company, but she has really low self-esteem when it comes to personal relationships. She feels like she is unlovable, and she just gets into this pattern of unhealthy relationships, whether that's with friends, whether that's with her family, whether that's in romantic relationships. And it really causes her to have low self-esteem. And that is where this can really come in. Like, she can be great at her job and she can be really good at lining out strategy, diving into financials and solving a tough problem, but she feels overall that she is unworthy in her personal relationship. So this is how self-esteem and confidence can exist independently, where you can have high confidence in your professional skills, but struggle with self-esteem in your personal life. And this is what leads to imposter syndrome. I think imposter syndrome is an overused term, but I get it too. I felt this way at the beginning of my career at Stone Age. I got hired to take over a company. I had no idea how to run a company, but I had confidence because I had done so many of the jobs that reported to me. I knew where those challenges were, maybe not in this specific company in this specific industry, but I understood a lot of those different jobs because I did them in my role at Eaton. And I felt really confident that I could figure that out. But I wondered, why would anybody want to follow me? I was so young. I was so inexperienced. I was coming off of a really tough time in my life. And I questioned, why would people want to follow me? Even though I had all this confidence that I can do the tactical aspects of these jobs because I've done it. Like, I think I can figure this out. And it's just such a weird dichotomy to be able to live in, of like, I can do this, and why would anyone want to follow me? And it's a real mind trip to live in this space. And that's why I think that this episode is so important, because I think there's so many people out there who feel this way, who have confidence in their specific areas of their life, but have low self-esteem and need to work on that. Conversely, you can have high self-esteem and low confidence in a specific role or a specific task. So a great example of this is getting up in front of an audience and talking. And I'm not talking about giving a keynote speech, although that could be it, but there's a near and dear employee owner who works at Stone Age who hates getting up and talking in front of the company. And she's really good at it. And she's got strong self-esteem. She knows that she is worthy and she has built this great career at Stone Age, but she is not confident in her ability to get up and talk in front of a crowd. So it makes her really nervous. That's how you can have strong self-esteem and still feel like, I don't have confidence to be able to do this specific task. But it doesn't like eat at your core self-worth. You just know, I've got to figure this out. Or I just need to avoid doing it because I don't want to build that skill. Although getting up in front of people is a really important life skill that we all need to learn. So hopefully that just gives you an idea of the difference of the two and how you can have one or the other. And hopefully you're starting to see why you need both of them. So let's dive into that. So leaders with high self-esteem, we need them. They are less likely to take criticism personally, and they're more open to feedback. And you know, I'm a huge believer in feedback. We all need feedback to grow, but when we have low self-esteem, we tend to get defensive, or we deflect, we blame, or we just can't take that criticism. That is low self-esteem. And we leaders need to have thick skin, and we need people to come and tell us what they think is going on in the organization and share their ideas and their feelings about things. And if we have low self-esteem, we're going to shut ourselves off from that, which shuts down our employees, which does not make a great place to work. Leaders who have high self-esteem also exhibit resilience, which is crucial for navigating challenges, right? With all of the unknowns that are out there in the world right now, things are changing so fast. We have to be able to believe in ourselves. We don't know the outcome of our decisions. We don't know when there's going to be another black swan event like COVID, and we're going to be forced to have to make dramatic changes to the way that we lead our teams or run our companies. But we can work on our resilience. We can go, I know that I can handle anything that's thrown at me, even when I am unsure of what the outcome is going to be. That is why we need leaders with high self-esteem. Leaders with high self-esteem believe in themselves. And that's really important because none of us can tell what the future is going to be. We have to believe in our vision. We have to believe in our capabilities. We have to believe in our teams. And it takes self-esteem to do that. If you have low self-esteem, you're not going to believe that you can get through anything. You're going to crumble in the face of adversity. And we need leaders who can withstand the pressures of today's crazy business environment. So now let's talk about leaders with confidence. Leaders who have strong confidence are more willing to take calculated risks and inspire trust in their teams. Calculated risks are, okay, I've gotten all the information that I can. I'm not 100% sure what the outcome is going to be, but here's the vision and we're going to make the decision and we're going to go for it and we're going to work hard to implement this strategy so that we can be successful, even though we're not 100% sure what the outcome is going to be. That kind of confidence inspires people. We as leaders have to have that because we have to take calculated risks. We have to be able to say, this is the bet that I'm making on our future. We have to take risks on hiring people, on growing and developing people, on letting people go. We have to do it in a way that inspires trust. And when we do it with confidence, it makes other people feel more confident in our ability to lead as well. Leaders with strong self-confidence lead with decisiveness and competence as well. And we need decisive leaders. Leaders who are afraid to make a decision because they're afraid to make a wrong decision, they come across as not being confident leaders. So you want to be decisive. You want to show your competence. And if you make a mistake, say, okay, you know what? These were what the risks were. We knew it. And here's what we're going to do to fix it. That is confidence. And leaders with strong confidence get outside their comfort zone. They really look at mistakes as opportunities to grow. I never say I hate making mistakes. Like, of course, it's uncomfortable to make a mistake, but oh my gosh, there's so much room to learn and to grow when you make mistakes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. That is how you actually build your confidence. You build your confidence by doing hard things, by taking those risks, by trying something new. That is what strong confidence is. So the key is balance. How do you develop your self-esteem to ensure that you value yourself regardless success or failure? And how do you develop your confidence so that you can act boldly and execute your vision? Why is this important? Because your employees want confident leaders, but they also want humble leaders. So hopefully that gives you an idea of why leaders need both. And I really like this statistic from the Harvard Business Review. It found that 85% of employees prefer confident leaders. On the flip side of that, they also like leaders who show humility. And being humble is also part of self-esteem. When you have high self-esteem, you can show up more humbly. When you can say, I made a mistake. You can say, I don't know everything. And if you're not humble, you're not willing to do those things. And I think that that's a really important balance, that employees want you to be confident, but they also want you to be humble. That is how you drive long-term performance. And remember, humility comes from a strong self-esteem. So now let's get into the meat of this. Let's talk about self-esteem first. How do you develop your self-esteem? First, you have to practice self-compassion. When you talk negatively to yourself, all you do is beat yourself down. And trust me, I know this. I lived many years hating myself, just disgusted with so many aspects of myself. And you know what it did? It led me to even more destructive, unhealthy behavior. So you've got to replace that self-criticism with constructive self-talk. If you beat yourself up, go get help with this. Talk to a therapist, hire a coach, work on your mindset. You are only holding yourself back if you talk negatively to yourself. So, for example, instead of saying, I failed, you can say, I really learned something valuable from this. This is how you change the mindset. This is how you start to flip that switch and not be scared of making mistakes or saying the wrong thing or not liking yourself for reasons that are just simply not true. Like, I did. I didn't like myself because I didn't like the way that I looked and it was ridiculous. I looked just fine. And all I did was just beat myself into the ground and create a really ugly life for myself. And when I started talking nice to my body and talking nice to myself, it is amazing how much I changed my life. So don't say mean things to yourself. It's unhelpful. Stop doing it. Get help if you can't stop doing it. Practice self-compassion. Love yourself. That is so incredibly important. The second thing is to cultivate a growth mindset. Failures are absolutely stepping stones, but you have to look at it that way. You have to look at yourself as a work in progress because face it, we all are just works in progress. We're going to make mistakes. That's how we learn. So don't beat yourself up for making a mistake. Grow from it, learn from it, cherish those mistakes because you're going to become a better human being if you choose to, if you look at those mistakes and say, how do I get better and learn from them? I love this quote from Vince Lombardi, who says, it's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get up. That is what a growth mindset is all about. Get up. We all get knocked down. And getting back up is what helps us grow and learn and become stronger humans and leaders. The third aspect is build self-awareness. You really do have to understand yourself. Back in my 20s, when I was going through such a hard time and I was making all these poor choices in my life, I did not have much self-awareness. I had no idea why I was making the decisions I was making. And until I came back to Durango, took my job with Stone Age, and started really digging into who am I and why do I make these really bad decisions in my life? That is when I empowered myself to change my life. I could reflect on my strengths and weaknesses, and I could say, okay, I'm going to focus on my strengths because that's what I'm going to be better at. And I'm going to forgive myself for my weaknesses because let's face it, we can't all be great at everything, and really start to learn myself. I talk about this a lot in my book. I just think self-awareness is hugely critical if you want to live a happy and fulfilling life. And that's the basis of self-esteem. So understand yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Don't judge them. Just understand what they are. Understand your personality type and how you show up. Seek feedback so that you can understand your blind spots, so that you can continue to build a relationship with yourself and relationships with others. Number 4, journal. I talk about this all the time. You know, I am a big journaler. I use Dabble Me. I love it. But when you write about your daily accomplishments and you write positive affirmations and you talk about the progress that you've made and what you've learned, even if you've made a mistake, you start to build that narrative of self-worth. And I absolutely love ChatGPT for this. So I go in at the end of every week and I have ChatGPT analyze my journal entries. How did I talk to myself? What are the areas that I want to continue to work on? What did I do really well? ChatGPT does this amazing job of summarizing it and really helping me give more insight to myself. That is an awesome aspect of journaling. And then finally, focus on personal integrity. Align your actions with your values. You are what you do. When you honor your commitments, you reinforce your sense of self-respect. When you set boundaries around things that you don't want to do, you are saying, I respect my time. I'm not just going to say yes to everything. When you say, I'm going to take care of myself because I can only take care of others when I care for myself first, you are exhibiting personal integrity. And this is everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. This is how you build that self-respect. A great example, kindness. If you value kindness, then actively seek out ways to embody kindness. Right? Don't talk about people. Don't judge people. If you have a belief system that makes you say, ooh, those kinds of people, I don't like them, stop. So a great example of this is something that's near and dear to me, I've been thinking a lot about, is kindness. Let's say that you really value kindness, then how you focus on personal integrity is that you actively seek out opportunities to embody it. And when you feel yourself judging, approach it with kindness instead. How can you be a little bit kinder in the world? How can you hold the door open for somebody? How do you give the homeless person on the street a couple of cans of food, maybe even a couple of bucks? How do you look people in the eye and smile and show them compassion and see them for who they are? If kindness is a value of yours, then express it every single day because the world needs more kindness. So those are some ways that you can cultivate your self-esteem. So I'm just going to run through these again real quick for you before we move on to confidence. First, practice self-compassion. 2, cultivate a growth mindset. 3, build your self-awareness. 4, journal. 5, focus on personal integrity. All right, so now let's dive into how to build your self-confidence. So the first thing that you have to do is start. You have to take action. But what you don't want to do is overwhelm yourself. You need to be able to start small. You build confidence incrementally by taking on manageable challenges. So let's say that you're not very confident around money. Let's say that you want to save more money, but it feels overwhelming to you. So you set a goal for yourself to save $50,000. If you just say you're going to achieve that goal without taking small actionable steps, it's going to feel overwhelming. So now what you need to do is say, okay, I'm going to start by the first $5,000, and I can do that by cutting these expenses. And then I'm going to do the next $5,000 by figuring out a way to make extra money on the side. So here's a little side hustle I can do. And then you do the next one and the next one and the next one. You just have to break it down into manageable chunks. And then when you save that $50,000, you are going to feel so much more confident in your ability to save money because you did it. You did it over time and incrementally by starting small. The second aspect is to prepare and practice. Confidence grows with competence. So if you don't have confidence in your ability to do something, practice it. Practice, 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 practice. It's the only way that you get good at something. So I did this with keynote speaking. I felt really incompetent when I first started out. But when I realized like, hey, I'm a good speaker and I have a story to tell. How do I get good at this so I'm not so clunky or feel so nervous or have to memorize every word of my speech to feel like it was going to be good? So I said, okay, I'm going to start just by saying yes to any small speaking gig so I can practice. And then I decided to hire a speaking coach, and she gave me feedback, and that feedback was really hard to hear, but she made me practice and practice and practice. And now I speak all over the world, and it started off really small. It started off sucking, but I got better the more that I practiced. So look at your goals and the things that you want to get better at and realize that none of us are good at anything when we first start. At least not most of us. Some people just have natural talent and it's amazing. They're great at everything that they do. But the reality is that we all have to practice to get good at something. So prepare and practice. Number 3, I love this one. Visualize success. How we manifest things in our life is we visualize it. We prepare ourselves for that future version of ourselves, but we don't just think about it. We don't just see ourselves achieving that goal. We feel how it feels to achieve that goal. That's the key thing. You have to actually feel that visualization. So you see yourself achieving this goal, gaining this new skill, being amazing at it. What does it feel like? How excited are you? What kind of joy do you feel? What kind of freedom do you feel? That is how you use visualization to be able to manifest whatever you are trying to achieve. Number 4, think about your body language. Body language and your posture say so much about you. When you stand tall, maintain eye contact, use open gestures, smile, it makes you feel more confident. It's kind of like the fake it till you make it, but not really, because the energy that you decide that you want to put out, that is then what you start to embody. So that's why you need to stand tall and make that eye contact and smile, even if you're not feeling it inside. That strong body language can positively influence that internal sense of self-confidence, which will then lead to having more confidence. And then finally, number 5, learn something new regularly. Get outside of your comfort zone. When you expand your skill set, it gives you a new sense of mastery and achievement, which boosts your self-confidence in various areas. I'm taking up golf right now. I am totally terrible at golf. And you know what? I've gotten better because I've gone out there and practiced. And it's been so good for me to learn something new. It's great because I get to go do it with my son. And even though he does not enjoy playing golf with me as much as he does other people who are better than me because he likes playing with people who are good, I don't care. I'm learning something new and I'm enjoying it and I'm embracing the beginner's mindset. And I know that just boosts my confidence as I get better and better at golf, even though I will probably always be bad at golf. That's okay. It's about pushing myself to learn new things and really gaining those new experiences. So those are my tips on gaining confidence. So I'm going to run through them again real quick here. Take small actionable steps, prepare and practice, visualize success. Don't just visualize it though, feel it. Take care of your posture and body language. Use strong body language and learn something new regularly. Get outside that comfort zone. So just to wrap this whole thing up and put a bow on it, here are some things that you can do that will boost both your confidence and self-esteem at the same time. One, surround yourself with positive influences, right? You are people you spend time with. Find peers, mentors, friends, family who uplift and challenge you. It will boost your self-confidence and your self-esteem. Celebrate small wins. Recognize the progress that you've made. Gap in the gain. I talk about this podcast all the time. I will put it in the show notes. Go back and listen to it. When you measure yourself from how far you've come, it helps with both your self-esteem and your confidence. Number 3, take care of your well-being. Your physical health impacts your mental health and your confidence. Your mental health impacts your physical health and your confidence. Take care of yourself. When you feel good and you look good and you're eating healthy and you're exercising, it builds both your confidence and self-esteem. Help others. That's the 4th thing. When you contribute to others' success, when you help build them up, when you help them solve a tough problem, it builds your self-esteem because you know that you're adding value, that you're helping people around you. And it gives you more confidence in your ability to make a difference in the world. And then finally, learn to say no. No is a complete sentence. You've got to respect your boundaries. And when you respect your boundaries, it demonstrates self-esteem. I know what I'm worth. I know how I want to spend my time. I'm going to say no here. And it also gives you confidence in your decision-making to say, I can do this. I can choose to focus on what I want to focus on and say no to these things that are not essential in my life. So those are the things that you can do to build both at the same time. So I'll run through them again. Surround yourself with positive influences. Celebrate small wins, take care of your well-being, volunteer to help others, and learn to say no. All right, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of the difference between self-esteem and confidence and why leaders need both to thrive. And hopefully those tips, if you could just take 1 or 2 of them and start working on them today, that it really will make a difference as you are building your self-esteem and your confidence. As we wrap up today, I want to give you your challenge. I'd like you to reflect on whichever area that you like to choose, either your self-esteem or confidence, and pick out a place that you need to focus on and commit to one actionable step this week. What's one thing that you can do to improve your confidence in a specific area or to build your self-esteem, to stop that negative self-talk? What's one thing that you can do? Work on it every day. Write about it in your journal and use ChatGPT to analyze it for you. It will make a big difference in your life. If you want to be more confident and you want to have higher self-esteem, you've got to do the work to build both of them. So we'll close with an inspiring quote from the Dalai Lama, who said, "With realization of one's own potential and self-confidence in one's ability, one can build a better world." Go build a better world. Thank you so much for joining me today on Reflect Forward. If you liked this episode and you think it could help somebody build self-confidence or build their self-esteem, please share it with them. And of course, if you like this podcast, please share it with others. Go in and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Leave a comment. I love comments, and write a review. That's always helpful. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week for next week's episode. Take care.